Hello, travelers. Welcome to the Copper Fox Inn. Come on in, take a seat, and join us as we discuss Homebrew for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. My name is Thomas, the Human Bard, and I am joined today by...
Mercy, the Tiefling Wizard.
And Mercy, you recently, in real life, not that this isn't real life, but in real life, while you are a wizard in the game, have been somewhat of a druid in our actual real life home.
A little bit of a plant lady.
In which it is, from where I sit, I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 potted plants.
Just from this spot?
Oh, and but that one's fake.
Yeah, that one's fake.
But that's been a hobby you've been getting into recently. How's that been going for you?
It's nice, I think I'm the only person, really the only bisexual woman to have become obsessed with plants during the pandemic. I don't think that's like a trope or a stereotype or something that everyone else does. I think that's pretty unique to me.
Yeah.
Really interesting of me.
Really a unique personality quirk.
Yeah.
Do you ever wish that in Dungeons and Dragons there were more ways to be like a plant person? Not a plant I guess to have plants? That sounded like I was going to introduce a cool plant race.
Yeah,
but that's
sadly
not
no.
what I'm doing.
Yes, always. Yeah, always, yes.
Because like you can be a druid and you can cast druid craft to make like little plants blossom.
But there's weirdly not as many, it's hard to be like actually a fully plant themed druid.
Because you can cast like grasping vines or whatever. It's like,
yeah,
okay.
But it's kind of limited.
Can I not just like make a cool tree? No.
No, not allowed.
Not really. You
not
can
allowed.
awaken a tree and give it, like, curse it with sentience if you want, but that's not great. So today I've brought some spells from r/Unearthed Arcana from user Kibbles Tasty, which are all in the theme of plant magic. Now, these would all be spells available to like druids and rangers and things. They will change from spell to spell. But just to expand upon that part of the game, in previous episodes, we've done some things like we talked about some elemental magic. We did, I think, ice magic during one episode. I think we did one episode about a plant druid that was more thoroughly into plants. And I think these plant spells bring a really fun vibe to someone who wants to be that character that not only kind of like manipulates plants, but also kind of brings that plant life around them as they play.
Yeah, definitely. I am all for introducing more and more spells just to give people access to like different flavor.
Yeah.
Where they can even be mechanically really similar to spells that already exist, but I love just reflavoring. I think especially for classes that work with known spells as opposed to prepared casters where they have access to all of them.
Yeah.
Adding more and more and more spells doesn't like break it because you still only know like the 10 spells that you know.
Yeah, you have to pick
but
which ones
now
you know.
you've given them options up front to actually like flavor their caster more the way they want, and I love that.
Yeah, definitely. Well, let's get into it here. Plant magic. Our first spell is Sprout Tree. It's a 2nd level transmutation spell. It is available to the druid class. It has a casting time of 1 action, a range of 30 feet. It has verbal and somatic components, and its duration is instantaneous. Targeting a 5-foot square on the ground within range, you cause a tree to sprout from the ground, growing rapidly to 20 feet tall with a 2-foot radius trunk. A large or smaller creature in this space must make a dexterity saving throw. On failure, they are lifted 20 feet into the air in the branches of the tree. The tree stops growing if it would hit a ceiling or other object when growing. On a success, they can move 5 feet to an occupied space of their choice. If there's no space they can move to, they automatically fail. A creature can choose to fail their saving throw. A huge or large creature automatically passes their save. The tree serves as half cover to any creature within its branches and 3/4 cover from attacks originated on the other side of its trunk. This spell can only target a surface through which a tree could grow. For example, you could not target solid rock, though I would like to immediately kind of challenge that. I've seen photos of trees growing out of a rock. So, I mean...
There are trees that grow in some crazy
I've seen a tree
places.
that grew out of the top of another tree.
Yeah, yeah.
At the DM's discretion, it can burst through up to 6 inches of most material. The tree has an AC of 13 and 50 hit points. The tree remains there, but may die rapidly if sprouted in unsuitable locations or environments.
Okay.
Its wood is flammable only when dried and serves no useful purpose other than firewood. I mean, or I guess if you build something.
Yeah, that's kind of an odd specification. Serves no useful purpose. I mean, it's just
not
normal
sure.
wood. Yeah. I wonder what they were thinking there. What they're
Maybe it's not like high quality wood. Maybe it's like really,
Maybe,
it's like
yeah.
balsa wood. You can make like paint stirrers with it, and that's it.
That's it.
So I thought this was a cool spell because you could use it in like combat to, you know, change the battlefield up, you know, move around. Like you can create kind of different terrain that's going to alter how you play. But I also was thinking much more about just using this as a substitute for, you know, like casting fly or something. It gives us a ladder essentially.
Lifts you up.
We need
yeah.
to go up a tree. We need to go up a cliff. Boom! There's a tree right next to it that we can use to climb. That kind of idea.
I really enjoy
use
that.
it for exploring and kind of altering your terrain.
Yeah, that's really cool. I feel like there's also cool like world building potential with this as a spell that exists in your world. Like if you're going into some NPC like a druid's lair and there's just like a maze of trees growing out of like bizarre surfaces at impossible angles because they've just been spamming this spell to make their tree fortress.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
I mean, that's, you know, not there in the text, but that's where my mind went. I want to live in a tree fortress.
It does have to target the ground, but...
Well, yeah, but see, I disagree.
Okay,
is the
well...
thing.
Sorry, Kibbles Tasty, you were wrong when you wrote the spell. Let's move on to the next one. Mercy, do you want to read this one?
Yeah, Bramble Binding, first level transmutation, classes Druid and Ranger, casting time 1 action, range 30 feet, components verbal and somatic, duration instantaneous.
And it's not a concentration spell. Yay,
Yay,
Ranger.
finally! Brambles burst from your hand, lashing out at a target within range. The target must make a dexterity saving throw. On failure, they take 4d4 piercing damage, and if the target is large or smaller, it becomes entangled by brambles. While entangled by brambles, it cannot move, but it can free itself as an action, taking no additional damage, or rip itself free using half of its movement and taking an additional 2d4 piercing damage. On a successful save, they take half as much damage and are not entangled by brambles. At higher levels, when you cast this spell using a spell slot of 2nd level or higher, both the initial damage and the damage taken ripping free of the brambles increases by 1d4 for each slot level above first.
Mm-hmm. So it'll scale up as you cast it at higher levels. I like it. I think it's a fun, like damaging spell. You're able to do it, but you always have this potential upside of you can lock a creature down for a turn or two, or else they're going to take some extra damage.
Yeah, I am always, what I sort of thought this was going to be, and then it wasn't, is I'm always looking for there to be more options in D&D for immobilizing somebody without casting Hold Person. Because it is so easy, like, things like the net, like, stop being useful really early on because it's such an easy DC to break out of it, and so anything that you're fighting, by the time you're, like, level 10, like, it's pointless. But not everybody knows Hold Person. That's not flavorful for every character, for every class. And so that's kind of what I thought this was going to be, but it sort of has that same thing as Net, where it's really easy to break out of. Which is cool, because this exists more, it seems like, to deal damage than it does to necessarily, like, restrain someone. Although it does use up their action economy, because either half of their movement and a damage penalty or their entire action has to get used up. So that is really useful from, like, a strategic battle point of view.
Yeah, it's a bad position to put an enemy in, especially if they don't have that much health. I mean, if you use this on a low enough level enemy, you can just one-shot them.
For sure.
Theoretically, you can hit them for whatever, 16 piercing damage, and then they can't risk the 2d4 damage because they have 1 hit point left.
That's gnarly, because imagine what is described here, insta-killing someone. Just thorny vines, shoot through their body.
Yeah, well, I mean...
That's nasty.
Being used on, like, a commoner, right? Like a townsperson, like, level NPC. That'd be rough. You just
constrictor them with a vine of thorns, that's pretty gnarly.
Yeah. We'll see more of that as we go on. Grasping Roots. First level transmutation, available to Druids and Rangers. Casting time 1 action, range 30 feet. Components verbal somatic, duration instantaneous. A twisting burst of roots launch from your hand, reaching to grab a large or smaller target. The target must make a strength saving throw. On success, the target is moved 5 feet in a direction of your choice. On a failure, the target is moved 20 feet in a direction of your choice. A creature can choose to fail this save. At higher levels, when you cast this spell using a spell slot of 2nd level or higher, you move a creature an additional 5 feet for each slot level above 1st.
That's an interesting utility spell.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I'm not sure. I'm having a hard time picturing like how this, like, I get the mechanics of how it works, but in the verisimilitude version of like I shoot roots out of my hands, like I'm conjuring them. I get that druidic magic. But they just like grab you and lift you like mage hand?
And
like
just
what
set
how
you
does
down
it
somewhere?
like do they put you, can I just say straight up? Like
Well, it
I'm a
doesn't
little
say
confused.
you can't.
Like,
Is this another way to climb a 20-foot cliff?
maybe, yeah. But also like why do roots lift me straight up? If they were like vines maybe, but like roots make me feel like I should be pulled down to the ground. Like, roots would grab me. I'm just a little confused on the like,
All right, if you need to get over a 40-foot wall, here's what you're going to do. You're going to sprout tree below yourself.
yes.
And then you're going to grasping roots yourself another 20 feet into
Well,
the
you're
air.
you're gonna be at the top of a 20-foot tree, and then you're gonna grasping roots yourself.
It doesn't
over a
say
wall.
you can't grasping roots yourself.
Yeah, no, you
which-
totally could.
So you shoot roots from your hand at yourself, and then you float. That one doesn't really make
I think after the movement from the spell, you then are subject to gravity, so
Right.
you're gonna just fall.
You better
or
have
whatever.
gotten all the way over.
Yeah. I don't know. It's interesting. Like, this is an interesting spot of design where it is a cool mechanical design that is at the intersection of D&D where a spell can do something, but there also needs to be a story with it that makes sense.
That you can picture.
That you can follow as a player, as a DM, so that it has some level of real world interaction in your mind. Like having the tree grow up underneath you and then now you're in the top of the branches of it makes perfect sense. Being like, this is like a claw game. Even the thing where it's like, I push you 20 feet away from me. Like, roots shoot out and push you 20 feet away from me. Like, it's just like a little... The mechanics work, but if this was
Right.
flavored a little bit differently, it would track more in my mind.
Because what comes to my mind personally more like naturally to picture is if it's roots, I imagine that like shooting out of the ground
Yeah.
next to a target within whatever range, within 30 feet, and then just like punching them, just like launching them 20 feet in a direction, which is cool. You can like, throw your enemies off of cliffs and stuff.
Yeah.
With that. Like that can be useful.
Which
Toss
might-
them into the lava.
Which might be like maybe too good even. That's very good. Like, if
They have a chance to make a saving throw.
Definitely, and then they're only moved 5 feet.
Yeah.
And I get that you can always shove somebody too, but it's like if you play on dynamic ground, that moving somebody a lot, like with that one Eldritch Blast invocation that moves people,
Yeah.
it can get really good. Moving people around the battlefield like matters a lot, and it can come up pretty often if you don't play in like white box environments of like
Right.
you're on a perfectly flat 10 by 10 grid that nothing is going on in it.
That is something that you as the DM can control for balance, though.
Definitely,
Like
definitely.
You can predict and
Yeah.
and if you can always give the enemies a bit. Like if if I have the ability to push you off a cliff, maybe you also have the ability to push me off a cliff. So you can still have that be balanced, but it definitely makes it a very dangerous spell.
No, for sure. I'm not trying to say it's unbalanced. It's definitely just, it's good, and that's why you don't see that ability on a lot of other things, because it can be like really good in certain situations.
I think mechanically I really like this spell. I feel like the flavor is like maybe a tiny bit weird to me, but that's super subjective. It's not way off.
Yeah, I would almost like it if this was just like a burst of wind full of like leaves, because I think that if you didn't change any of the mechanics about this, right? But instead it was like a gust of wind full of like autumn leaves and flower petals and cherry blossoms blows you 20 feet in a direction. All of a sudden, that makes so much more sense to me. And I'm like, yeah, okay, sure, it can lift me straight up, it can push me backwards, it can pull me, like, that makes sense. But once it's grasping roots, I want it to, like, grab me and make me not move. And that's just, like, the opposite of what it does.
Yeah, it feels more like it's reaching out like a hand and, like, grabbing you and picking you up and setting you somewhere else, which could still be cool, but it's not explicitly written as that, and so it's sort of that thing where that's what I'm picturing, but I'm not sure if I'm supposed to be.
Where am I? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right, let's go to the next one.
All right, Bramble Barrier, 3rd level transmutation. Classes Druid and Ranger again. Casting time 1 action. Range 60 feet. Components verbal and somatic. Duration instantaneous. You create a line of brambles that erupts within range. This line is 30 feet long and 5 feet wide, made up of 6 5-foot squares of brambles. Each patch must connect to another patch and be placed on the ground. The bramble patches are difficult terrain, and a creature that enters a square of brambles takes 4d4 piercing damage and must make a Constitution saving throw. On failure, their speed drops to 0. The brambles wither and die after 1 day if the area is not suitable for them to grow. Each 5-foot square portion of brambles requires at least 1 minute to clear by hand, or can be cleared if they take 5 or more fire damage. The brambles crumble to dust immediately if you cast this spell again. At higher levels, when you cast this spell using a spell slot of 4th level or higher, you can create 2 additional 5-foot squares of brambles for each slot level above 3rd.
So this is sort of like a variation on like Wall of Fire, other spells that make those like 5-foot patches, but I make it in a line.
I think Entangle is the one that is like you create grasping vines on an area.
Oh yeah,
on the ground, right?
No, yeah, but I'm saying in its mechanics of like you're making a 30-foot line of these pieces that each are 5-foot squares, but they have to connect to each other. But you can make it like in shapes and stuff. Like, yeah.
Yeah, that is interesting that it's a line.
Mm-hmm. So it can wall off an environment. It can wall off, part of the battlefield, and then they have to try and get through it. And it says if you're just gonna like try and clear it by hand, it takes a minute.
Right.
It doesn't give you like if you attack it, it goes away, or they can deal fire damage. So you've got some time, unless they can have fire damage at will or something like that.
So it is kind of a lower level version of Wall of Thorns, because Wall of Thorns is bigger and does more damage.
Yeah.
But it's 6th level. So this is sort of just a more accessible.
And you can make Wall of Thorns be like a circle or whatever, whereas this has to be in a line. Wall of Thorns is 10 feet tall, whereas this one's 5 feet tall.
Yeah, Wall of Thorns is bigger, so it's like 10 feet high. Oh, so if it's a line, it's 10 feet high. If it's a circle, then it's up to 20 feet high, which is interesting. And Wall of Thorns blocks line of sight, which this would not, because it's just on the ground. So it is sort of like baby Wall of Thorns.
Baby first Wall of Thorns. Yeah, but it's still useful. It provides you that kind of utility that Wall of Thorns gives you of being able to divide up the battlefield. If you need to protect somebody that's, if there's a dangerous threat, and someone you want to keep safe, you can put a wall between them, which is always useful.
In a lot of situations, as a druid, I would rather take this than Wall of Thorns, because Wall of Thorns is 6th level, and there are other 6th level spells that I would rather use those slots with. So I like having this as an option.
Definitely, yeah. I think it's interesting, and I think this one, like we had talked about with the last one, this one, the story on it tracks.
Yeah,
like,
totally.
You get exactly Bramble Barrier. It's a line of brambles. I get everything about this. It's like brambles, so it's this kind of like thinner brush, but it's like really tough to get out.
Right.
Whereas Wall of Thorns is like dense, thorny, like greenery. This is just like, if you're gonna try and cut it down, it's so gnarly and like curling over itself, it takes a while. But if you light it on fire, it like goes right up in flames.
Right.
Because it's just like
thin,
this old, thin dried stuff. And that if you if you cast it somewhere that's not intended to grow, it dies immediately because it's not good at growing. All right, we got 2 left. Carnivorous Garden, 4th level transmutation spell. It is available to just the Druid class. It is casting time of 1 action, a range self, parentheses 60 feet. I don't know what that means. We'll see in the spell, I guess.
Sometimes I'm 60 feet away from myself,
Sometimes, me.
Sometimes I feel 60 feet away from myself.
I've been there. Components, verbal, somatic, and material. This one, the material component is a dried carnivorous plant. Duration, concentration, up to 1 minute.
I almost bought a Venus flytrap.
I would
for
not.
Our apartment the other day, but I was like, that would creep you out way too bad.
It would.
So I did it because it's just got little mouths and it's alive and it eats.
Yeah. I don't like that plants are alive. I forget that they are, and that's the only way that I am cool with them.
I literally was about to buy it, and then I was like, I can't do that to him.
Ignorance is bliss.
I can't do that to him.
Targeting 4 empty spaces within range, rooted carnivorous plants erupt from the ground, killing. Erupt from the ground, filling a 5-foot cube each. Terrain within 5 feet of them becomes difficult terrain. When the plants appear, they attack a creature of your choice within 5 feet of them. Make a melee spell attack dealing 2d8 piercing damage on a hit. Each plant can make 1 attack. If a creature ends their turn within 5 feet of one of the carnivorous plants, it automatically attacks them unless you use a reaction to prevent it from doing so. So including like your friends and you.
You're like, wait, no!
It uses your spell attack modifier and deals 2d8 piercing damage on a hit. The plants have an AC of 14 and 30 hit points, and have vulnerability to slashing and fire damage. If they have 1 or more hit points, they magically regenerate to full hit points at the start of your turn. When the spell ends, the plants wither and die, leaving behind difficult terrain unless they were killed by fire damage. At higher levels, when you cast this spell using a spell slot of 5th level or higher, you can summon 1 additional carnivorous plant per spell level.
The Mario Rude plants.
Yes. Piranha Pete, correct. I don't know why this is I don't know what part
like 60 feet from yourself, but that's a given.
Within 60 feet of you?
Wait, empty spaces within range.
Yeah.
How? Yeah, what?
I'm not sure.
Maybe because you can cast it below your feet, and then like the tree, it lifts you up, and you're just riding it like a cowboy.
I don't think so, but that's okay. The thing I like the most about this is that it is symmetrical in the sense that it affects your enemies and your friends.
Yeah.
So you have to plan around it and be like, hey, folks, I can make a bunch of plants. Don't go near them. I can only stop one of them from attacking per round. Uh-huh. So don't fool around and find out, as they say. But I appreciate that, and I feel like that's also true to real life, like carnivorous plants, because I've seen people like you go to touch the plant with your fingy and it will just close right on you.
Oh, that is spooky.
I don't like it.
But I am your mother. You wouldn't do this to me, your friend who feeds you.
They don't care. They'll do it. They have no morals. What do you think, Mercy?
I mean, I like this a lot. I think it is in the Druid Circle of Spores where you can make, like, what was it? I know I was making a druid using some other homebrew stuff a while ago, where in the actual text...
The problem of this show is that every time we're like, was that a real thing or a homebrew thing? We've looked at so much at this point.
I can't remember if this is in the actual Circle of Spores, or if this was the homebrew that I merged with the Circle of Spores to make mine.
Or the Unearthed Arcana Circle of
Or
Spores.
the other Circle of Spores. But somewhere in there, you would make these plants that, like, dealt damage if people got near them, but I think they were flavored as more like mushroomy, or like they let out a gas or something. But specifically for my character, I was like, they're like Venus flytraps though, so picture that when I do it. So I like that this is that. Like, now you can have that, because it is weird that you can't really be like a poison ivy character as a druid, because you'd think you would be able to.
Yeah.
And I like that all of these spells, and including this one for sure, I feel like make you more able to have that character archetype.
Yeah, definitely. All right, last one here.
Summon plant. I really like that. Like a sort of He-Man cartoon, like, I summon plant!
Oh, it's like a Yu-Gi-Oh card.
Yeah.
No, it's like all the other summon spells, you know.
It's just funny, summon plant. 3rd level conjuration. Classes only druid again, casting time 1 action, range 90 feet. Components, verbal, somatic, and material, which is a carved wooden figurine worth at least 300 gold pieces.
Somebody is highly evaluating wooden figurines.
That's not made out of the wood from that first tree, because that's only good for firewood.
It's only good for firewood.
Duration concentration up to 1 hour.
Don't say it like that.
1 hour.
That's terrible.
Yes?
See, she complained. Don't say it like that.
She didn't like that.
That's bad.
You call forth a magical plant. It manifests in an unoccupied space that you can see within range. This corporeal form uses the plant spirit stat block. So it is corporeal using the spirit stat block. Got it.
Look, spirits are whatever we want them to be.
They're whatever we want them to be. There is no actual
D&D,
definition.
That's the official D&D answer to what is a spirit.
I don't know. Like,
whatever I feel like it is, get over it.
When you cast the spell, choose one of Shambling Mound, Treant, or Dryad. The creature resembles the creature of your choice, which determines one of the traits in its stat block. I love modular abilities and spells. The creature disappears when it drops to 0 hit points or when the spell ends, which is in an hour. The creature is
Or if you lose concentration.
Right. The creature is an ally to you and your companions. In combat, the creature shares your initiative count, but it takes its turn immediately after yours. It obeys your verbal commands, no action required by you.
Man, Beastmaster Ranger.
Oh man, just rubbing it in their faces, really.
Every time.
If you don't issue any, it takes the dodge action and uses its move to avoid danger. At higher levels, when you cast this spell using a spell slot of 4th level or higher, use the higher level wherever the spell's level appears in the stat block. So then we have a stat block here for Plant Spirit.
I'll go through it here. Plant Spirit is large, unless it is a Dryad. Unless you pick Dryad, then it is medium. It is a plant, and it is unaligned.
Like all plants, they're amoral.
Plants, yes, without morals. Armor class 12 plus the level of the spell, so that's what it was referencing there at the end. Natural armor. Hit points 35 plus 10 for each spell level above 3rd. Speed 20 feet. It has an array of stats I won't read all of. It is vulnerable to fire. It has resistance to bludgeoning damage. It has 60 feet of dark vision, because everything does. It has blind sight to 60 feet, but only if it is a Shambling Mound. It speaks Sylvan and understands the language that you speak, and it has no challenge rating. Tree Stride, Dryad form only. Once on its turn, the plant can use 10 feet of its movement to step magically into one living tree within its reach and emerge from a second living tree within 60 feet of the first tree, appearing in an unoccupied space within 5 feet of the second tree. Both trees must be large or bigger. Kind of like, step through plants or whatever it's called.
Yeah, step through plants, that's the one.
That's the one. Step on plants, that's what it's called. Engulf, Shambling Mound only. If the plant hits a target that it has grappled, that target becomes restrained until the grapple ends. Actions, multi-attack. The plant makes a number of attacks equal to half the spell's level, rounded down. Whoa! So if you do it at a really high level, it can make like a lot of attacks.
That's pretty zesty.
I guess not that many, 4 maximum.
Yeah, that's a lot though. That's a lot of attacks.
Sure, but if you do it at 4th level, it'll take 2 instead of at 3rd level, it only gets 1. Entangling Slam, Treant and Shambling Mound only. Melee weapon attack, your spell attack modifier to hit, reach 5 feet, 1 target. On a hit, it deals 1d10 plus 3, plus the spell's level, bludgeoning damage, and the target is grappled. The escape DC is your spell save DC. Until this grapple ends, the plant can't attack another target. And then Vine Lash, Treant and Dryad form only. Melee weapon attack, your spell attack modifier to hit, reach 15 feet, 1 target. On a hit, it deals 1d8 plus 3 plus the spell's level piercing damage, and the target is grappled. Escape DC is your spell save DC. Until this grapple ends, the plant can't attack another target.
It's interesting the way they've balanced it, where the Treant is the only one that didn't get an ability in the block before that, but then the Treant has access to both of these actions.
Yeah, the Treant can do either of these things.
So it works out where each of them has sort of 2 abilities or actions that it can take.
Yeah, it's also though interesting that it can only attack by grapple. Like all of its attacks end in a grapple. Like it always ends up grappling you if you are hit by the attack. And then if it's a Shambling Mound, you're like super grappled because you also get restrained when you're grappled, which is not normally true.
Fits a Shambling Mound.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That is interesting because it's sort of like, I mean, how else would a plant attack you? It could just like punch you with its branches, I guess. But I guess it feels weird. It's like, what's it gonna do? Like stab you?
What are you gonna do? Stab me?
You don't even have thumbs. You can't hold a knife, you stupid tree.
Quote from person stabbed by a tree. What are you gonna do? Stab me? Yes, there's also a note, vulnerable limbs. As per Sage Jeremy, a creature you are grappling can attack you, regardless of if you are in its normal attack range, by attacking the limb that is grappling you.
Wait, a creature you are grappling can attack you, regardless of if you are in its normal attack range, by attacking the limb. Is that supposed to say by attacking with the limb grappling you? Because that makes it sound like they're attacking their own limb. What?
Yeah, if I have a 15-foot tentacle.
Do you?
And I'm grabbing a creature. That creature's 15 feet away from me, because that's how long my tentacle is.
Yeah.
I'm grappling them. They can still attack me, even though they're 15 feet away, even if their sword can only reach like 5 feet. because they can attack the tentacle that's holding, and that's a part of me. So they can make an attack against me.
Oh, you see. Okay. I was switching who the you was in the two parts of that sentence.
I see. Yeah.
Okay.
So why that matters for this is the vine lash.
Right.
You can hit them with your vine and they're 15 feet away and then grappled. They can still attack the plant, even if they're stuck 15 feet away from it, because they are being held by its vine. So they'll cut the vine. So that's how that would work if they're holding you like that. And that's why, I mean, it's well balanced enough that the plant, it gets these attacks and it's always grappling them, which means they're always going to be able to attack back at it. So it's a pretty decent creature to summon, a helpful creature to have, but it is pretty vulnerable to most stuff. It's going to be the target of your opponent's attacks a lot of the time, and it doesn't have that many hit points, especially at higher levels. So if you have it try and grapple the dragon, it's not gonna last very long. So that's kind of how it balances itself out.
I feel like it's a pretty decent spread across these spells for druids, because druids do a lot of creating or summoning or conjuring different creatures, like fae and beasts and such. So I like having more options to do that with actual plants.
Yeah, I agree. That's what I think. I think that in D&D it falls a lot more on the beast side of the druid, where it's a lot more about your affinity with animals.
Yeah.
But I think there's an available niche for druids that have that affinity, but for plants instead. And
Definitely.
It's more plant themed than animal themed. Because there's a lot of druid stuff about being friends with bears and things.
I feel like there's a lot more about animals than there is about us, even looking at individual subclasses and stuff too.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the spells. I really specifically like the Bramble Binding spell for the Ranger class.
Yes.
The one where it just is deal a good amount of damage, or also kind of lock them down a little bit. Because it's not concentration, which I love for Rangers, and it gives them another little weapon in their utility belt to use. And Rangers can use all the help they can get, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that is a really good addition to Rangers. And I feel like that fits. I feel like it's usually my Ranger characters are the ones where I struggle with what I was just talking about with I need more options to immobilize you without hold person, because I don't always want to kill them or knock them out or whatever.
You just have entangle, which, yeah.
So I like anything that lets you sort of hold somebody still, because even this just slows them down, really. It just slows them down and does some damage, but that's still really useful.
Yeah, definitely.
So I like giving them that for sure.
Yeah. Overall, great work, Kibbles Tasty. Love the design space here. I'd love to see more of this in the future from official Wizards of the Coast.
Oh, yeah.
I want more plant nature themed spells and options for players, because while the Druids, like we said, get a lot of good animal stuff, I feel like there's not enough good Wrath of Nature plant based stuff. I feel like you could do a cool Warlock subclass that's with a plant patron of some kind. I think you could do obviously a good druid subclass that's more planty. I think there's room for a ranger subclass that's leaning more into the magic side, more into the plants, that kind of thing. For a plant domain, a nature domain cleric, but it's more vibed into plants instead of into animals. I'm just saying there's space there for it, and I don't see a lot of it. So Wizards, we'd love to see that.
He's just saying that so all the plants we're surrounded by don't get mad at him.
I'm appeasing them. I want more of you.
More plants, yeah, more plant representation for sure.
I love having you all around all the time, watching me. Thanks so much for listening, travelers. If you enjoyed what we talked about today, if you enjoy D&D Homebrew, consider giving us a like on this video and subscribing to the channel for future Homebrew Dungeons and Dragons discussion content.
It's so long.
I don't know why I've said it wrong the past couple videos. If you have a homebrew you'd like us to talk about on the show, you can always send it to us at our email, thecopperfoxinn@gmail.com, or on social media @thecopperfoxinn.
Also, if there's any other type of content that you would like to see from us, any other D&D content that you feel like there could be more of on the internet or that you can't find that you would like to see, definitely let us know. You can, send that to us on social media. You can email us, you can comment it. We'll see it however you send it our way, but we're super interested in seeing what you guys would want to see more of, anything you're interested in that you feel like isn't there yet or there isn't as much as you would like. Definitely let us know and we might look into it.
Definitely. So, thanks so much for listening, and until next time, keep on adventuring.
Bye!